Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the BizBlend podcast where real business meets real life. Now, today's episode, I'm really excited for our listeners because it's packed with wisdom, resilience, and timeless leadership insights. My guest, Charlie Newcomb, brings with him over 4 decades of frontline experience in the food service industry. 33 of those years with McDonald's and 11 years working with suppliers supporting the McDonald's ecosystem. Born and raised in Maine, now calling New Hampshire home, Charlie has built, led, and mentored countless teams through challenges, growth, and the evolving demands of an industry that never ever slows down or sleeps. In his new book, Life, Leadership, and Success, Charlie reflects on a career rich with both professional and personal lessons, from managing conflict and holding people accountable to finding joy and fun amidst the immense pressure. So, if you are a leader, an entrepreneur, or someone navigating your own leadership journey, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Maybe this could be the masterclass that you ever needed. So, with that, Charlie, welcome to the show, and I'm super honored to have you here with us.
Yes, thank you for having me, and nice to meet you too, Sana.
Uh, Charlie, food service industry, one of the most brutal, demanding industry, but one of my favorite because there's lots and lots to learn from a perspective of an employer or an employee or as an entrepreneur, as a person overall. But most people, today, if we see the today's scenario, they change careers every few years, including myself. But
Yeah.
you have built a 40-year journey across only a handful of companies. What do you think allowed you to stay engaged, grow, and remain committed for so long in just one core industry?
Yeah, I would tell you that, obviously, the foundation of my experience is based upon the 33 years in the McDonald's world, but whatever happened to me in McDonald's can happen to anybody, whether you work at a a high-end steakhouse, a seafood restaurant, other fast fast casual restaurants, or a Longhorn, Texas Roadhouse, quick service restaurants of, our competition, McDonald's competition, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, all of those all of those food industries, I'm sure, are facing the same challenges and experiences that I had in my 33 years at McDonald's. And the good thing about it is you gain a lot of transferable skills. I mean, I always say that the job is easy, the people screw it up. And it is so true in any job, even in an office environment. You get somebody that's not happy and they may just speak and yell at somebody out of frustration. And, so there's so many transferable skills that can apply to both your career, also your life and how you raise your kids. And I'm never perfect, but
Mhm.
I've certainly had a lot of great experiences that have shaped my career and who I am as a person and individual today.
Wow. No, but still, Charlie, it's rare to see this kind of professional longevity these days. And I think it offers valuable lessons, especially to the younger generations, on both personal and organizational loyalty. I mean, the good sense, of course.
Sure. Yep.
Now, talking about your book, of course, you talk a lot about managing people and building teams. Um, One thing you said, when you were explaining in the beginning that the job is easy, but it's the it's sometimes people um, they are definitely responsible. What would you say is the most misunderstood aspect of leadership that people still get wrong even today?
Uh, that's a great question. And, I think, in my humble opinion, I apologize. I got my dog barking in the background a little bit, but
Right.
the people are made up of so many different upbringings, and all your employees that are working under you, have different factors in their life that are influencing the decisions they make. They influence how they react to situations. I remember one time I was working, up in a store in southern Maine in Portland, and this was a McDonald's, and it was right near a funeral home.
Okay.
So I used to tell my crew and other managers, be aware of. Hang on one second.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was just trying to get away from my dog to keep quiet.
Oh,
She's
no.
I told my folks to be aware of maybe some of the moods of the customers, because you don't know if they're coming from a wake in which they are looking at their loved one in a casket, and all sorts of emotions playing through.
Mm.
The employees that are working, you just never know. Maybe they got a speeding ticket on their way to work. Maybe their mom and dad were, having a fight before they came to work. You get in my time in the McDonald's world, there's a lot of 16-year-olds. It's their first job. So maybe they're quiet and maybe they're shy, and you can really foster some of their um, great attitudes just by talking to them. So I going back to the question, I what I say to people is assume innocence. Assume that maybe something is influencing their particular mood. I remember one of the examples I write in my book was a person that was so frustrated one morning, she threw a whole batch of hot cake batter, pancake mix all against the wall because she was, mad at a certain situation, but it really wasn't the situation it was in. It was the fact that, her mom had been going through some you know, financial issues at home that got passed down to her. And it was more about that. And sometimes you see a boss who may react with like, okay, you're done. You gotta go home now. But talk to the person, see what's on their mind. You just, ask some good probing questions, get them to open up a little bit. And they will appreciate that, that you did that and took the time out of your day to ask them, what's going on. And you sometimes you just find information and listen to people and show that you care and appreciate the job they do. Give compliments all the time is what I say, praise in public, criticize in private. I'm kind of wandering around a little bit, but there's so many different things that I've experienced that
I know.
kind of go off a little bit.
Yeah, I know. But one particular point that I so much loved about is praise in front of everyone, but also criticize in private. This is something that when I mean, although I'm just 10-year-old tenured person, but um, when I see this kind of culture, then it really means that yes, I can definitely thrive, or somebody I know they can thrive, because now as someone who is yeah, working with the team members, it's easy to criticize, it's easy to point out mistakes, but then it's also so necessary to guide them and also to appreciate when they are actually doing good, because that helps them understand that they are seen, they're heard, their contribution, they are valued as a person.
Yes. Yep. And I would also add to that that, you know, a leader needs to be a good coach.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't take the time to be a good coach. And what I mean by that is if they're very critical of employees, they're always noticing what's wrong, what isn't right, what procedure are they doing incorrectly. So what they'll do is they bring out an employee, they go to sit down and says, "Hey, Jennifer, I really noticed you were doing a nice job today, doing French fries. But I really have to tell you, you were, your hair wasn't up. You were talking too much to all this. to other people, you were distracted in your job, and you list off these 10 other things, but you feel you need to always start the conversation with a positive. And then, but think of that person sitting there, okay, here comes Charlie to talk to me. What's he going to say? What's really the crux of his message? They don't hear the compliment. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in the negatives that, but what's wrong with just highlighting the positives and leave it at that? The other thing that people do, and I talk about this in my book, is they use the word "but." "You did a really nice job today, but you gotta do a better job here. I noticed you were, um, really attentive to the customers. However, you gotta be really talking to your crew a little bit more." It's always you're using that "but" word, and you don't even need to use that word. You can say the same thing and just remove the "but." You see a lot of that at come performance review time too.
Mm.
Sorry, sorry. I talk fast too, by the way, Sana.
No worries. And Charlie, I mean, the business model has been discussed in MBAs and the likes of MBA and business circles, entrepreneurship. And it's no small feat. And since McDonald's clearly invested heavily in your development, any specific leadership or management principles um, from McDonald's that still guide your thinking even when you are outside of that system?
Every day. And it's even in the last 10 years, things I've learned from my bosses, and sometimes I've learned from my peers as well. Um, I look at I guess one thing that stands out to me is being a good listener. I'm also a very big fan of Stephen Covey. And one of the things that Stephen Covey talks about is a lot of times people listen to respond and they don't really hear what you're saying. They're really not listening. They're only listening to as they're listening to you, they're gathering their response, but they're really not hearing what you say. But back to, how you react as a leader. I go back to some of the greatest people I've worked with. I call it the emotional intelligence. If something bad happens or you have a fryer later that catches on fire, you know, are you one to react like, "Oh my god, the you know, call the fire department." They start yelling at the top of their head, they panic. And it really just needs to be, okay, keep a cool level head and move on. I've been involved in unfortunately I've been involved in situations where my staff, it was robbed at gunpoint, and that's never fun. But how you react as a leader, you're not only teaching future leaders, but you're also reacting in a calm manner, even though inside of you, you are torn up. You are emotionally baffled with what to do next. And sometimes what I say is fake it till you make it. They don't know what you're thinking. And like I said, fake it till you make it, act calm. Think about what you would do. And then I go back to the listening skills and truly listen to what the people are saying. And sometimes that it's an underlying issue that is really the issue at hand and not what they're talking about. And that kind of goes back to the young lady with the hot cake mix. There was something else distracting her. But the other thing I would say too as a leader is, and I got this from Coach Bill Belichick. We've been spoiled up here in New England with the New England Patriots, and Coach Bill Belichick is truly a great coach. But one of the things that he has said, I read in one of his books, was you can delegate responsibility, but you cannot delegate accountability. So admit when you've done something wrong, be accountable for the results. And even though you've delegated a project or a profitability goal to somebody else, as the leader, you're still accountable for those results. So help
Mhm.
the person that you've delegated it to. Help them be their mentor. Help them give them advice on how they can do better at a particular goal they may be working on. Um, so those are, a quick, touch of what I think of the important leadership traits. I mean, there's so many. I mean, a good leader has to have a well organized approach to their leadership behaviors, good communication skills. As I said, they have to listen.
Yeah.
Uh, they have to motivate their people. They have to adapt to many different situations. And the biggest thing I say a lot, well, there's a lot of big things, but is you have to adapt to change. Every day it's about change. And I'll tell you a good example is, think 15 years ago. In my world, 15, maybe 20 years ago, I could not survive with a electronic calendar. I had to have a full calendar out in front of me to plan out my days and plan out my time.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to go to an electronic calendar. Finally, I did, and I could never go back to an old calendar. But that was a change.
Mm.
And we certainly feel out of our element when we're managing change and dealing with change. But again, I go back to, fake it till you make it. Just the fact that an electronic calendar, it's a small example, but that you internally you're really struggling getting used to an electronic calendar. But once you've made the change and once you've adapted to it, you can't go back. And our world today is changing all the time.
Oh,
Technology's changing, social media is changing. People are reacting to social media more than ever.
yeah.
On and we could talk all day.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And the discussion, the conversation around fake it till you make it can be so nuanced. The situation, the example that you gave, unfortunately, I think those kind of situations, they do sometimes challenge um, the right or the ethical way of having that authenticity. I absolutely, agree with this. In fact, I have had a conversation just 2 days back with another one of my guests. Uh, Like, sometimes, even if internally you know that you don't have an iota of clue how to figure it out or how to react, sometimes faking that kind of confidence or calmness is the best way. It's like acting as a dead body in front of a bear so that you don't
Yeah,
get eaten up.
good point. Let's hope we're never faced with that.
Great, great. Charlie, a bit of a self introspective question. Um, Looking back now, how do you personally define success? Has the definition changed over the decades? Like, do you feel that instead of doing the same thing or being associated with something uh, for a long time, it's better to be dynamic, flexible, and changing careers, shifting trajectories?
I was, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've been blessed with some great jobs. I've had 4 jobs in my career. I've loved every one of them.
Mm.
And as I mentioned in the beginning, there are so many transferable skills that you attain through all your jobs. In my current job, working now with Manitowoc Ice, recently faced with my boss of 3 years, or two bosses of 3 years, up and changing jobs and going to a different company, and that really hit pretty hard. But I learned so much from them, from their appreciation of people. They're always very positive about their job, about the company results. No matter if you know that the results are not the best they could be, you would never know it in talking to them because they said it in such a great way that, and that maybe you didn't get the results you wanted or you didn't achieve the sales results that you had, and you know it from the discussions that you have with them, but you walk away with a feeling of great optimism for the future in the next year, what the future brings. So I'm always, listening to people, watching people, how they react to certain situations. And the two bosses, you know, uh, one's Bo Erickson, Greg Ebel. I think the world of them. And they, they taught me so much. Great listeners, and not that I didn't know some of this stuff before, but they lived and they displayed so many different leadership traits that I embodied, and just could relate to, and they're just such good human beings, and that's the biggest takeaway I take from them is just, they're good, caring people. So I've always tried to do that myself, to
Mm.
be a good human. And sometimes, maybe I don't smile enough, and that's probably my biggest drawback. But, because I'm always thinking about, what's going to be happening the next day, where are we going to be next month, what's our goals for the year. And, I'm very concentrating on that. At the same time, I do always try to listen to what people are saying and, formulate my own opinions and lead through what I've learned from all of my other mentors. I'm a big believer in having mentors at every stage of your career. It can't be your boss, though. The boss cannot be a mentor. So
Okay. Wow, that's really very much needed different perspective, and of course, there is no age for learning. I mean, you can
that's right.
in when you are in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. I tell you, my book is I'm very much into quotes that I've
okay.
encountered throughout my years, and I put several of them in my book. And the one quote that really stands out to me a lot, it talks about what it says is when people walk away from you, let them go. Your destiny is never tied to anyone who leaves you. And it doesn't mean they are bad people. It just means their part in your story is over. And that was from Julia Roberts. And I think back to, as I mentioned, when I lost my two former bosses now, you know, I still love my job. They made it that much better. They made it appear like it wasn't a job, but I still love the brand. I still love what I do, and I go back to what she said in her quote that those people, even though their time in my life is gone,
Mm.
but I still move on and want to be that leader and learn from them as a leader. So hopefully I can incorporate some of the same things I learned from them, and also from what I learned from a boss 20 years ago. So
Wow, it's wonderful. Really, really, very, very inspiring, Charlie. Very inspiring.
thank you.
Oh, wow. And of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, get a hold of your book as well, what will be the best way?
The best way, it's my book is currently on sale through Amazon. It's now a Amazon bestseller list. And it's also going to be, I should be even available in Barnes and Noble and major bookstores now too. But it's Life, Leadership, and Success. And I have a couple subtitles: Purposeful Life Lessons and Strategies for Managing Teams with Impact. And it talks about my journey from McDonald's crew member to industry leader, a journey of personal and professional transformation. And I'm not who I'm not who I was going to be if I had taken a different path in my career.
Mhm.
I'm blessed with some great bosses, some great jobs, and I've always been learning. And I'm also available on LinkedIn, Charlie Newcomb, and then my email, charlienewcomb@comcast.net. I love to talk to anybody. I'm looking forward to possibly speaking in front of group audiences down the road. It's kind of my next endeavor. I would like to kind of im- help impart my knowledge upon other people. You just never know who you're going to impact in your life. There's always people watching how you react, and hopefully you have an impact on some people. And I mentioned a few people in my book that impacted my life, and they probably didn't know it until they read my book. So it was a great experience.
Wonderful, wonderful, Charlie. I'll make sure to have all the details and links in the show notes. And
Thank you.
thank you so much for this heartwarming, rich, and grounded conversation.
Yeah, no,
40 years,
it was great.
40 years of wisdom, Charlie. Um, I hope that it got packed into just a few minutes here, at least personally for me. And I'm very sure for our listeners as well. So thank you so, so much for giving some of the golden nuggets to us.
I think but I started my career when I was 5 years old, so you know how old I am now.
Oh, so for all of the listeners out there, make sure to check out Charlie's new book, Life, Leadership, and Success. It is filled with stories and actionable takeaways for anyone looking to grow, not only professionally, but also personally. I'll have the links, mention the show notes for you. And until next time, this is BizBlend, where business and life always intersect. And this is a host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.